And it's done it, so we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. This is our Condition 1 routine from the original Pete Egoscue book. So if you haven't got it and you can get a hold of it, and it's not too expensive, I do recommend buying this book. It's from 1992. It's very dated and all of its kind of illustrations and the way that it's written, but it is still gold. And within this original book, Pete Egoscue kind of created 4 main routines. The one that we're going to do tonight, which is Anterior Pelvic Tilt. The second one, which is Condition 2, which is for people with rotation in their body, which is basically everybody. Number 3 is the Posterior Pelvic Tilt. So we'll be doing that in 2 weeks' time. And the last one is the Deluxe routine, which is really quite long. We're not going to do it as a live class, but I am going to film it as a video. I just think it would be too long to do as a live class. So I will be, by the end of the month, all 4 of these routines will be on the software. I'm not going to say much more than that because I want to get going. I haven't created these routines. So the classes this month might slightly overrun just because I need to fit in all the exercises that Pete Egoscue had put into them. You are going to need, in terms of equipment, a little bit of wall space. You don't need a wide stretch, but you're going to need a bit of wall space. I've also got my static back set up. So I've got my chair and a couple of cushions for static back, but also have some other spare cushions around pretty much always when you do your posture exercises. And I think we'll get straight to it so that hopefully we don't finish too much beyond 6:45. So to start with, what we're going to do is our standing assessment. So we're just going to stand ourselves up, shake everything off, close our eyes, and just tune into how your body is feeling today. So noticing where you might have pain, noticing where you might have tension, noticing if you kind of get a sense that maybe you can't pull your shoulders back, noticing if you've got one foot that's bearing more load than the other. Just do this body scan so you're getting this initial sort of sense of where we're starting from. We'll do it again at the end of today's routine. Hopefully the routine will suit you, but if you feel worse at the end, if your existing things that you're feeling right now feel elevated at the end, this routine tonight is not the one for you. So we've just had a couple more members. So just to remind everybody, so we're all on the same page, if a posture exercise hurts you, and that means it makes an existing normal symptom of your pain feel worse, don't do the exercise. It won't get better. You cannot fight through pain. There is nothing good that will happen from that. So you've just got to stop things that cause you pain. Do something else that suits you. This is a routine for people with an anterior pelvic tilt. So that's where the rib cage flares up and the lower back is compressed. It doesn't mean it won't suit people who are posterior, but it's more likely to suit you if you are anterior. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight myself and we will get started. The first exercise in this routine is standing arm circles. So this is such an Egoscue classic. For standing arm circles, you want to make sure that your feet are parallel, hip width distance apart. So by parallel, we're turning our feet slightly in. I'm just going to pull my screen down slightly. We're turning our feet slightly inwards, and you're probably going to feel a little bit pigeon-toed when you're actually parallel at your feet. So I don't want your toes turning out to the side. The middle of the second and the third toes are lining up with the front of your ankle. Your toes and your hips are underneath each other. This is what we call the kind of the load stacking of our joints. So our hip, knee, ankle, and a knee. If I said that, what am I talking about? Hip, knee, and ankle and shoulders are all one on top of the other. We're going to do golfer's grip. I'm going to come to the screen and show you that in a second. But the exercise that we're going to do looks a bit like this. Our arms are coming out to the side. We're going to pull our shoulder blades back and down behind us without lifting our rib cage up and without pecking our head forwards. So we're really trying to create shoulder movement rather than rib cage or neck compensation. I'm going to come closer to the screen to do the exercise so you can see what I'm doing. I'm in a golfer's grip position, which looks like this. So I'm not in a fist, I'm not floppy through my hands, I'm flat through my palm, my thumb extends back, and I'm bent at the second knuckles like this. We are going to do a minute forwards, turning circles like this. So I'm driving the movement from my shoulder whilst keeping my shoulders down away from my ears. I'm not bending my wrists and I'm not bending my elbows. The movement comes from the rotator cuff. And just be super cautious that as you pull those shoulders back and down behind you, that you don't lift up your rib cage or peck your head forwards. 1 minute here, off we go. So we're going to relax our face. We're going to keep our mouth closed. We're going to breathe in and out of our nose, relaxing our belly, breathing into the lower diaphragm, or the lower rib cage, sorry, to kind of stimulate the diaphragm. We're not moving excessively quickly. The arms are locked. There's no bending at the wrists. There's no bending at the fingers. The thumbs are nice and extended. The elbows are not bending. And we're moving in this circular position around the shoulder joints to stimulate the muscles of the shoulder and of the upper and the mid back. 20 seconds left here. You guys take a break whenever you need. So if you start holding your breath or pulling faces or noticing pain, just take a break. If your neck cannot help but take over, drop the exercise. You are compensating too hard. This should feel like hard work in your arms and shoulders, but it shouldn't feel like lower back pain or neck pain, which are the two most common compensations when the function isn't there at the shoulders. Oh, we've gone a little bit over, but that's fine. We're going to do exactly the same thing, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to twist from our upper arm so that our hands face behind us. So we're making sure that we're not just twisting with our wrists, because it's possible here for you just to bend your wrist and move your hand behind you. I want the external rotation to happen at the front of the chest. So once again, you're squeezing those shoulder blades together behind you, away from your ears. The rib cage isn't lifting. 1 minute here, off we go. And in 2 exercises time, we're doing static back. So when we're in static back, I'll explain to you why we have these 2 initial shoulder exercises that we're going to be doing at the beginning of our condition 1 routine. If we're tackling our pelvis and our pelvic tilt, why are we starting with shoulders? The short answer is everything is connected and everything needs to be tackled. Keep breathing. The backwards motion is probably going to be more difficult. You're moving your arms in this kind of straight line around the shoulder girdle. The wrists are like tight, they're not bending. The thumbs are extending, the fingers are active, the elbows are straight. We're driving the movement from the shoulders and we want to be getting tired in our shoulders. We'll do another 10 seconds here, slightly over 1 minute, just to make up with the other side. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so I want you to stand exactly where you are. You're still maintaining your parallel feet for me. Nothing is changing there, but we're going to do a different thing at our hands and in our shoulders. And I'm going to do this towards the camera so you can see what I'm doing. We're still doing our golfer's grip. In this exercise, but in any exercise when you're doing golfer's grip, it's really important that you don't lose the sort of work that's happening at your hands. So we don't want to see wrists bending and we don't want to see fingers floppy. We don't want to see thumbs bending either. We want to challenge our hand function with this position. We're going to bring our knuckles to our temples, thumbs facing downwards. And as we do this position, what we're asking for is our arms to kind of flex and elevate up towards our head. But what we don't want is I don't want your shoulders up round your ears, because that's why you're going to get neck tension. So you're going to pull your shoulder blades back and down away from your ears so that you've got length through the sides of your neck. You're not allowed to bend your wrists and you're not allowed to lift your rib cage up and down as you really slowly bring your elbows together so that they're kind of just in front of your shoulders and you take your elbows apart. You can do this one with your back against the wall as well, because that will help you kind of stay in alignment and not rotate. This is what the movement looks like. You're making really sure that you're not bending your wrists, and that if you were a doorway, that pivot motion is only happening at the shoulder joints, and you're really making sure that the shoulders are not lifting up and down, and that you're not lifting your rib cage up and down either. Off we go, 2 minutes here. So the thumbs stay super active throughout. I really pull them down to open up that angle between my index finger and my thumb. My rib cage is not lifting up and down, so the rib cage will often flare as a compensation if the shoulders cannot work properly. We are looking to improve your shoulder function, not make your rib cage compensation stronger. I'm not bending my elbows. So many of you here are going to lead with your elbows and bend your wrists this way, or conversely, you're going to lead with your wrists and then the elbows are going to touch afterwards. The fingers, the wrists, and the elbows stay in a straight line throughout the exercise. We continue to breathe in and out of our nose, sending our breath into our lower rib cage, relaxing our facial features, relaxing our belly, and taking a break. So if you're holding your breath, or you're pulling faces, or you're straining and cranking and forcing, just take a break. Give yourself a little bit of recovery time and come back to the exercise when you're able to teach your nervous system to kind of stay calm around it. Got about 30 seconds left here. Really trying to pull those shoulder blades down away from your ears. And if your motion is really restricted here, which is entirely possible, you can just move within whatever range of movement you can do. So I'd rather you do like a minimal amount of movement at your arms, but really keeping the fingers and the hands kind of tight without that bend at the wrists, and keeping the shoulders away from the ears. I'd rather you do that than do this one badly and kind of move through that full, well, what looks like the full range of movement, but is actually just with some cheats along the way. 3, 2, and 1. So relax yourself off there. The good news is that we're going to come into static back. Static back suits most people's bodies. Typically speaking, the only people who static back doesn't suit tends to be people who are already quite posterior. So if you're already posterior and you know that your body doesn't like static back, just do something else instead. This is like a little 5-minute break to let things settle. So whatever feels good for you. I would recommend, if you are posterior, grabbing your towels or your cork posture rolls and putting one underneath your neck and one underneath your lower back, and being in a hook lying position, so knees bent, feet flat on the floor. For everybody else, we're going to come to static back, which looks a bit like this. So I've got my legs up over a chair, my hips, my knees, and my ankles and my toes are hip width distance apart. My bottom half is completely relaxed, but it stays in alignment. So I have to have this cushion underneath my calves, because if I didn't have this cushion, my legs would either flop out or flop in when they are relaxed. I want your legs fully relaxed, but I want them supported enough that they can stay in alignment. And I've got this cushion underneath my head and underneath the tips of my shoulders. And the reason being is it just helps to angle the bottom of my rib cage onto the floor. So if you are an anterior pelvic tilt person, it's highly likely, just because of the cascade of movement problems that kind of all originate from the same place, it's highly likely that when you put your shoulders back on the floor, that you're going to notice that you have like a little bit of an arch in your lower back. Your rib cage is flaring. And in order to stop that, I want you to put the cushion, or maybe even 2 cushions, underneath. We're going to stay here for 5 minutes. Off we go. So with your hands, you can put one on your belly and one on your kind of chest if you like. And I want you, if you're kind of new to this, to breathe in and out of your nose and send your breath quietly and deeply and slowly into your lower rib cage. So I really want you to feel your rib cage expanding on the inhale and then contracting on the exhale. And I want you to try and get your breath equally into both sides of your lungs. So for me, I'm more restricted on my diaphragm on that right-hand side, and it takes like a little bit more effort to breathe into that right-hand side of my rib cage. We're just settling things down here. If you don't like having your hands on your chest and your belly, you can have your arms out to the side, preferably about a 45-degree angle. Keep your chin tucked in so the back of your neck stays long. And this is just going to help with lengthening your spine and relaxing rotation in your upper body. So we're doing a routine which is called condition 1, anterior pelvic tilt. So you might wonder why we've started with shoulders. So we've done standing arm circles and standing elbow curls. And the reason being is that when we have an anterior pelvic tilt, so when tension in our hip flexors dominate, it pulls the front of our pelvis forwards. So imagine a bowl of water and the water's spilling out forwards. It compresses the lower back. The tension in the hips also lift up the rib cage into a rib cage flare, and it means that the shoulders can't ever sit properly at the back of the rib cage. So for somebody who has an anterior pelvic tilt, they might have shoulder pain, and they might endlessly do exercises to stretch their shoulders or strengthen their shoulders. They might constantly be pulling their shoulders back and down behind them. But if the shoulder pain or the shoulder position is dictated by what the pelvis and the spine are doing, which is entirely possible, you can do as many shoulder exercises as you like and it won't make a blind bit of difference. We've got to get in at the root cause. But saying that, those first 2 exercises that we've done them to reduce some compensation in the upper body. So we're looking to open up the chest, open up the shoulders a little bit, warm up the upper body to kind of de-thaw the iceberg further upstream, so that as we move further down into the lower half of the body, where most likely the true kind of underlying problems lie, we're going to be greeted, with a better reception. So that's why we've gone in at the shoulders first. We've reduced compensation in the upper body. We've got rid of some rotation in your rib cage, woken up the shoulders and the arms, and it's going to mean for some of you, you're going to get more changes through your pelvis and through your lower back. We've got just under 2 minutes here. Really breathing into this. We're just allowing gravity to pull rotation out of our rib cage, out of the pelvis. We're kind of opening up the front of the hips here a little bit as the pelvis and the lower back sinks onto the floor. Feel for differences from side to side, from left to right. You might really have a sense that one side of your rib cage or pelvis or shoulder is much more heavily grounded than the other. And brilliant, you're noticing imbalances in your body. And when you notice these imbalances, it means that you are well on your way to changing them, and then you won't notice them anymore. And keep breathing, keep relaxing. This book is so old that static back is not even called static back in it. It's actually called static back press. So they've obviously dropped the press at some point in the past, but a little bit of fiction, or I can't get my words out. A little bit of trivia for you. Static back used to be called static back press, but they've obviously dropped that at that point. And just to let you know, we're not going to do it today, but if you've got the time and you're watching this back as the recording, once we finish static back in 30 seconds time, you might want to pause the recording because he's actually got supine groin stretch at this point in the routine. So static back, then supine groin stretch for at least 15 minutes on either leg before the rest of the exercises carry on. We're not doing supine groin stretch today, but I am going to put it in the sort of comments on the video below so that you can see where you're supposed to do it. And for those of you who don't know it, you'll see what I want you to do, because you can search for it and do it separately if you want to. So yeah, if we were being really strict, we'd now be moving on to supine groin stretch. So pause the video if you want to do it in the future. But for the rest of us doing it live, we are going to carry on, bypass supine groin stretch. However wonderful and amazing it is, we do not have time for half an hour of passive hip releases in today's class. So we are going to move on to here. Again, it's an exercise that doesn't exist anymore, in that normally you would do it in a flexion abdominals position with a block, but this exercise is called crunchies or abdominals, and we don't put a block in between our knees as per the book. So I want to be quite strict as to what the book is saying. But we're coming into our flexion abdominals position, which looks a little bit like you're in a squat, but an upside down squat. Your shins are parallel to the floor. Your toes, your ankles, your knees, and your hips are all in alignment with one another. Really making sure, once again, those toes are not off out to the side. You're twisting your feet in. You're going to be probably narrower and more pigeon-toed than you think you should be when you're in the right position. I'm in a little bit of hip flexion here, so my hips are slightly closer to the wall than my knees, but not excessively. We're going to bring our hands behind our head in this kind of cradle position. So we're interlinking our fingers deeply. And what we're going to do basically are some little sit-up movements here, where we're really trying to isolate the abdominals. So the position that we're putting our legs in helps our hip flexors kind of switch off almost. It's going to encourage the abdominals to do the exercise, not so much the hips. But the thing that you will mainly notice that you're going to want to compensate with here are your elbows and your head. So most people bypass abdominal function by chucking themselves up using their hands and their elbows. So we're going to keep the elbows level with our ears. We're going to look up directly at the ceiling and actually, if not, slightly behind us on the ceiling. And that's just going to help us to keep our upper back and our neck long. Your head stays completely relaxed. And what you're going to do is actually tilt the bottom of your rib cage down into the floor so that your upper body ever so slightly lifts up. So you're going to literally lift your upper body by probably maximum 2 to 3 inches. You hold and you relax it all the way down. So we're doing these tiny little crunches, but because we're not compensating and using momentum or pulling on our head, we're not trying to move very far. It's very subtle. We're going to do, I think I said 2 minutes here, so off we go. So your feet stay against the wall. Just make sure you're not lifting your big toe joints away from the wall. Make sure your knees stay in alignment with your hips, because you might notice that they fall apart or fall in. You're not pushing into the wall excessively with your feet, because if you are, you're trying to use your hips to drive this movement. And we're trying to get your kind of hips and pelvis and lower back to kind of settle into the floor here. What we're doing is we're using the abdominals to change the tilt of the lower rib cage. So it's like an upper abdominal, lower rib cage movement. The tilting upwards is minimal. The elbows do not come in front of the ears. The head stays heavy, the neck stays long, and keep looking up at the ceiling, because that's going to encourage you to work from your abdominals, not to curl into too much flexion where you're yanking on your head. We're just over halfway. Remember, take as many breaks as you need. This abdominal work is really helpful for getting you out of a rib cage flare. So it's very all good also for balancing any twistedness in the rib cage. We're lengthening your lower back into flexion, and we're tucking your pelvis under slightly into a posterior position. So it's helping with a whole host of different things that tend to show up in an anterior pelvic tilt body. Keep breathing in and out of your nose, into your lower rib cage. There's no abdominal gripping here. We're not tensing our belly. We're just moving the rib cage and feeling how that wakes the belly up. We've got 10 seconds left. Keeping the back of the neck long, keeping the elbows wide. Nice and slowly. It's not about how many reps you do. It's about feeling into your body and doing them as well as you can. Okay, that is time. I'm just going to have to refer to my, yes, okay, the bad news is that some things never change. And even in 1992, Pete Egoscue wants everybody to be doing their foot circles. So you can grab a cushion here if you want to, especially if you know you're somebody who likes to rib cage flare or tilt your head backwards when you're in a supine position. So I'm going to use a cushion because I like to lead by example. And what we are going to do is we'll start with I'm going to hold my right leg first. So we're going to start off by taking both of our legs long in front of us. We're going to pull backwards through the tops of our feet into dorsiflexion. So dorsiflexion is the movement of the top of the foot towards the shin. Makes sure that you're not pointing your feet away and flexing your toes back towards you. So some people here will be in plantar flexion and we want dorsiflexion. So we're closing up the angle of the front of the hip. As you do that, make sure you don't lift your ankles off the floor. So some of you here, if you hyperextend your knees, which is a compensation for a lack of hip and foot function, if you hyperextend your knees, you're going to notice you lift your Achilles heel off the floor. Keep your Achilles heel down, even if that means that your knee has to bend slightly. Keep your left leg in that position. We're going to lift up our right leg. We're taking our hands behind our right knee. We're keeping our right shin parallel to the floor. We're going to keep the back of our neck long. We're going to try and keep both of our legs still in alignment with our hip. And without moving our right knee, we're going to turn outward circles for 1 minute. Off we go. So this is definitely one where I need you to relax your face. So for so many people, they are so dysfunctional in their feet that as soon as they start asking their feet to move, everything else clams up. That is compensation. If the feet are dysfunctional, you might notice you're gritting with your jaw. You might notice that you're really grabbing with your hands or your arms or your shoulders. You might be tilting your head backwards. You might be stopping breathing. I need you to keep the upper body as soft and easy as it can be. Your shin, your knee, and your upper leg stay completely still. We're pivoting that ankle around without the shin moving around. So if your ankle can't move very well, you might use your knee to compensate, and that could be an explanation for your knee pain, ankle stiffness. And we're going to change directions in 3, 2, 1. So same leg, opposite way. The shin stays still. We're really trying to get the toes involved in the movement here as much as possible. So as the toe points away, we kind of as the foot points away, we point the toes. And as the foot flexes back towards us, we flex the toes. Relax your face, relax your jaw, relax your belly. Remember that I want that left foot still dorsiflexing. So I want you to feel the front of your left shin talking to you because it's waking up on that left-hand side. Keeping the back of your neck long. And you're really not cranking too hard with your hands here. And then in just over 10 seconds time, we're going to stay on our right leg, but we're going to do point and flexes. So we're going to do like ballerina feet towards us and away. 3, 2, 1, flex and point. So really go, and this kind of goes for all of the directions, but just go so much slower than your body wants you to. Especially when it comes to the feet, the body will use momentum to bypass function. I want your feet, your toes, your arches, your shins, your calves. I want all of them absolutely screaming at you. So we're using foot function here to help support the pelvis and the other joints further upstream. So for some people, their anterior pelvic tilt can be caused by foot dysfunction. But on top of that, in this position, you've got one side of your pelvis doing one thing and one side of your pelvis doing another thing. So it can be really, really good for pelvic balance, which can also help to sort of relax the lower back and change the rib cage position and stuff like that. We've got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So relax that right leg down. The good news is that we're stopping our right leg, but we are going to do the same on the left leg. So let's just get our lower leg set up again. We're going to pull those feet back towards us, really trying to keep toes, ankles, knees, and hips are in alignment. We're not lifting our Achilles heels up off the floor because that's hyperextension of the knee, not dorsiflexion of the foot. And then keeping our right foot locked in that position. It's also stretching off the hip on that right leg, which is great for people with an anterior pelvic tilt. We've got left knee, hip, ankle, and toes all in alignment with one another. We're making sure that the shin is parallel to the ground. Outward circles, 1 minute, off we go. So just see if you can perhaps half how quickly you're going. So if you're just really, really rapidly rotating your feet, it's really likely that you're missing lots of the nuances of movement that are available throughout your incredible foot architecture. So go slowly and focus on getting as much movement here as possible, but without the shin moving, without the knee moving, and without the ankle moving up and down. So some of you here are going to move your ankle up and down. I want the ankle kind of still, but it's rotating on its axis. It's not moving from left to right or moving up and down. Don't let that left knee fall in towards your hip. Keep it directly out of the hip joints. Upper body stays relaxed. Keep breathing. Relax your belly, relax your jaw. Keeping that foot flexed on the right side. Swapping directions, off we go. So we're changing the circle on the left foot. So we're going inwards this time. Again, the legs themselves are polar straight. Your whole body here is totally still, other than your breathing, moving your lower rib cage a bit, and other than the foot that you are moving. So the shin is not moving, the knee is not moving, and the thigh is not moving on that leg that you are twisting at the moment. And if you find this so hard that you feel like you could cry, that is a sign that you need to do this exercise more. So if this is unbelievably difficult, hello, you have weak feet and they need to be strengthened, and the rest of you is going to start feeling a whole lot better the stronger that they get. We've got 5 seconds left here. We're going to do those points and flexes. 3, 2, 1. Off we go. So really trying to get as much flexion as you can. The middle of the second and the third toe stays in alignment with the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And really point the feet away as much as you can, trying to get cramp in the arches of your feet as they wake up. Forwards and backwards. The foot is, imagine that your foot is kind of stuck between 2 panes of glass, vertical planes of glass, and it can't go sideways. So you're really trying to draw the foot straight back towards the kneecap without there being any twisting. Your ankle does not move up and down here. That right foot still stays active. So you're feeling the shin on that right hand side, stretching that hip into extension. We're breathing, watching that the left knee's not falling in or falling out. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Amazing work if you survived that one. Next up, we are going to come to our cats and dogs position. So for whatever reason, the Egoscue method calls the more commonly known cat-cow cats and dogs, but don't ask me why, but the principles are the same. However, it may be different than what you do in your yoga classes because there is a lot more kind of detail that I will teach you than most yoga teachers will teach you in this exercise. So we're going to come to all fours. We don't do this if we have knee pain. We don't do this if we have wrist pain. Give it a go. If it hurts, do something else. Do some pelvic tilts on your back. Don't put padding under your knees because that is you pain-killing a sensation your body wants you to hear. My wrists are underneath my shoulders. And I'm spreading my fingers really, really wide, keeping my thumbs as straight as I can. And I'm being really super active with the ground here. My hands are really the foundation of this exercise. So they're arguably one of the most important parts of it. We mustn't neglect that. My toes, my ankles, my knees, and my hips are in alignment. So narrower than most people think. And as much as I can, I'm pointing my feet into plantar flexion so that the tops of my shins move towards the floor. And the motion of doing that might give you cramp in your feet. If you do, great, shake them off, come back to it when you're ready. But that plantar flexion of your feet is going to help you get more movement at your pelvis. We're going to roll the pelvis forward. So the pelvis initiates the movement in both directions. And we're going to imagine that we've got someone walking down each vertebrae of our spine. So we keep driving the pelvis forwards into extension, which means the back is waking up and moving into a slightly more compressed position. We sink into our mid-back. We pull our shoulder blades away from our ears and towards each other behind us. And we really gently look up, but we try not to dominate with our neck. And then what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze our glutes, our bottom muscles, to roll the pelvis into a posterior position. And once again, we're really going to stretch in that opposite range of movement into flexion, but the pelvis leads us in both directions. A really important thing with this exercise is that your torso is not moving forwards and backwards. So the most common compensation I see here is people moving forwards and backwards, or people completely bypassing the movement of their shoulders and their thoracic. We're going to do 2 minutes here, off we go. So your hips stay above your knees throughout. It's the pelvis that moves, not your torso. Your shoulders stay above your wrists throughout. You're really trying to sink into that upper body and pull your shoulder blades away from your ears and together as you move into extension. You might feel crampy in your back, that's great. Roll the pelvis under, we're not shifting the torso backwards. The hips stay above the knees, the shoulders stay above the wrists. And really feel into your back here. This might be an exercise that you feel like you've done a million times, but can you get more hip flexion? Can you close up the front of your hip more when you're in this anterior pelvic tilt, which is what we're doing here, extension, what I'm doing, and then the posterior pelvic tilt as we move into flexion. Keep breathing, spread your fingers wide, have them really powerful, stretching on the floor. They are your anchor. This is a really good exercise for restoring movement to the pelvis and to the spine and to the shoulders, but also for balancing the pelvis, the spine, and the shoulders. The pelvis leads the movement in each direction. Everything else follows vertebrae by vertebrae, but you've got to get your shoulders moving here. And you're only going to do that if you're moving nice and slowly and focusing on feeling that kind of mid-back and upper back, working hard. You've got just over 20 seconds left. We've got 3 exercises left, so we are going to overrun, but it's actually not going to be too bad. I think next week's class is going to be the one that will overrun the most. 3, 2, and 1. So we're going to stay where we are, and we're actually going to push ourselves up into a downward dog. Let me just check. Yeah, okay, I'm all right for the screen. So I want you to really think about your hands again. So just like in cats and dogs, cat-cow, in a downward dog, your hands are the foundation of the movement. They're your connection to the earth in the really powerful sense. So spread your fingers wide, try and keep your thumbs as straight as you can. And to start with, you're keeping your shoulders above your wrists. You're going to tuck your toes under, and you're going to lift, without moving your hands, you're going to lift yourself up into your downward dog. But what I want every single person here to do, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, my last live class. We're going to keep toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. So I don't want your toes spinning out to the side. I don't want your knees falling in or falling out. You're going to bend your knees as much as you need to in order to roll your pelvis forwards. So what I don't want to see is straight legs with feet flat to the floor and a curve in your spine. This is making your downward dog really passive. Nothing's waking up here. This isn't doing anything. Bend your knees, roll your pelvis forwards to close up the front of your hip. You might feel your hips cramping. Don't worry about what your legs are doing. I want you to squeeze your quads, your front thigh muscles, but you're going to keep your knees bent. You're going to sink into your shoulders. So you're going to pull your shoulders away from your ears. You're going to externally rotate your arms so the inner fleshy bits of your elbows face ahead whilst the shoulders sail away from the ears. And then from there, you're going to try and send your tailbone high into the sky. But I don't want you trying to straighten your legs if that just means you go like this, because that doesn't do anything helpful. Off we go. We're going to hold this for a minute. So we're trying to feel the fronts of our hips cramping. We're trying to feel our quads shaking as they try and straighten our legs, but we're not losing that pelvic position that creates the straight spine position. This exercise is one of my nemesises, if that's the right word, just because I really can't do it very well unless I'm really warmed up, which I'm not today. So I want you to be feeling a huge stretch down the back of your legs. I want the fronts of your legs, your quads to be working hard. I want your hips to be working hard. I want your shoulders, your upper back, and your arms and your hands and your mid back all working hard. You're really thinking about your hands as being your anchor here. Breathing nice and deeply. And that is time. So downward dog is once again really good for balancing the pelvis and lengthening the spine, but it's great for stretching off the backs of the legs, so you're going to get more function through your glutes, hamstrings, and calves. Final two exercises. We are going to do runner's stretch modified, and I'm going to use my chair here. You don't need to use anything. You can use a yoga block, or you can use like a countertop or a stretch of wall, but we're going to do an exercise that looks like this. So I like using something to lean over. We're going to set ourselves up. I don't mind which one you do first, but I've got my left leg in front of me and my right leg behind, and I've got my toes and my heel on my left foot in alignment with the knee and the toes on my right foot. So there's no hip width distance apart here. We've got one foot in front of the other. What we are going to do is bring ourselves up, and actually you can walk this foot in slightly if you want to. And the principle that we're doing in this exercise is exactly the same as downward dog. So I don't want you to overly focus on having straight knees, because if you overly focus on your knees, number one, you're going to be more likely to hyperextend. You can see there how my knees are slightly hyperextending. And then what that's going to do is it's going to make you posterior. And you might be thinking, oh, Ellie, but I thought this was an anterior pelvic tilt class. Don't we want to be posterior? We don't want to be posterior when it's us cheating from the exercise. We want to do it functionally. So keeping your feet one in front of the other, you're going to bend into your knees. You're going to roll that pelvis forward. So you're closing up the front of the hip. That's where you're going to get hip strength and hip balance from. And then from there, you're going to squeeze your quads again, your front thigh muscles, and you're only going to straighten your legs as much as you can before you then start noticing you want to tuck your pelvis under. So you're driving that pelvis forwards. It's going to feel significantly harder work. Off we go. So we're going to hold this for 1.5 minutes before changing sides. You're making sure that you've got weight through both of your feet. So you're not really dominating on that front leg. You're not really dominating on the back leg. Both of your feet are taking the weight. You're squeezing your quads. You're not using the quad squeeze to straighten your knees. You're using the quad squeeze to draw your kneecaps towards your hip, because that will stop you from hyperextending and it will help you achieve more hip flexion. And the more hip flexion you get, the more balanced your pelvis is going to be, and that's going to help improve your pelvic movement. If you've got it in you, you can also sink into your shoulders here and pull your shoulders away from your ears. It's kind of like what we were doing in that cat-cow movement. Keep breathing, relaxing your face. Keep weight evenly through both of your feet. 3, 2, and 1. I might have said 1.5 minutes, but we'll do 1 minute. We'll stop that there, and we're going to get ourselves back down onto the floor. to set up for the other side. So this time I've got my right foot in front, I've got my left toes underneath me, my toe and my ankle on my right foot are in alignment with my left knee and my left toes. I'm bringing myself up, I'm bending my knees, I'm actually going to walk my left foot slightly further forwards but keep that alignment. Roll the pelvis forward, so I'm really closing up the front of that hip joint. I've got a little bit of an arch in my lower back, it's going to make it much harder. Off we go. So we're going to try and straighten the knees. Oh, I feel much more restricted than on this side. Interesting. So I'm keeping my knees slightly bent here because if I put my left ankle on the floor, I can just feel how I really disengage. So I'm keeping my left ankle slightly raised off the floor. I'm squeezing my quads to try and close at the front of that right hip joint. And what I'm going to do is bring my left leg slightly further forwards just to really focus on keeping that work happen at the front of my left hip, which is definitely something I can feel my body is wanting to avoid. Sinking into the shoulders, pulling the shoulders away from your ears, relaxing your face, breathing in and out of your nose, squeezing the quads to lift the kneecaps towards the hip rather than thinking about them as straightening the knees out, because that's definitely where you'll be more likely to hyperextend your knees from. And every now and then I like to bend my knees just to try and get into my hips a little bit more. And that's time. Okay, final exercise is Airbench. So a tough one to finish, but a nice one to finish. We're going to need to stand with our backs against the wall. I'm okay doing this without any trainers on, but if you're on carpet or something like that, you might want to grab some shoes to put on. It just does depend a little bit on your flooring. So Airbench is a wall sit. And I would recommend not getting into it straight away. Let me talk us through some things, otherwise you might hate me at the end of a couple of minutes. So we're doing toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment again. Really, once again, making sure that your toes are not facing out wider than your ankles. We are taking our feet quite a lot further away from the wall than you probably want to, because what this means as you come down, it means that your knees are going to stay above your ankles. And what this is going to do is give you the ability to really push down into the backs of your feet and push your pelvis and your lower back into the wall. So what we're trying to create here is a real sense of, oh, we're having a crazy thunderstorm at the moment, have it really pushing backwards in our pelvis and our lower back. I don't mind if your upper body is slightly rounded forwards. What I don't want you to do is this, where you puff your rib cage up. You're completely defeating the point of Airbench if you do that, especially for what we're trying to do in this anterior pelvic tilt routine. So we're going to do that again. We're going to hold it for 2 minutes, take as many breaks as you need. Off we go. So down we go. My toes, my ankles, my knees, and my hips are in alignment as I look down at them. My knees are neither falling in nor falling out. My toes are neither falling in nor falling out. They are straight. My palms are facing up. I'm pushing into the backs of my feet. I'm still keeping weight through the fronts of my feet, but I'm pushing through the backs of my feet to really push my pelvis and my lumbar spine into the wall. I'm not overly worried about what my shoulders are doing. So I'm allowing my shoulders and my head to slightly hunch forwards, because what that does is it allows me to really focus on my pelvis and my lumbar spine. This can be one of anterior pelvic tilt people's favorite exercise. It really fires up basically all of the muscles of the legs. It's great for pelvic balance, but we're tucking the pelvis posteriorly and we're lengthening the lumbar spine, and it's taking us out of the rib cage flare, provided that we're not doing the rib cage flare, trying to get our shoulders backwards. We're halfway through. Relax your belly, relax your face, relax your jaw, breathing in and out of your nose and sending that breath into your diaphragm. I'm going to take a little break. So push myself up and then come back down. What we want to be feeling here is all of the muscles in your legs working, but we don't want to feel knee pain. So if you feel knee pain, you probably need to take your feet slightly further in front of you than you're doing. You probably need to watch the alignment of your legs a little bit more, or you may just need to be a little bit higher up. So the higher up on the wall you are, the easier it is. But what we'd like to do is work ourselves towards 90 degrees, because it's just going to help us with that tucking under and balance of the pelvis and increase work in the legs. 3, 2, and 1. Your torture is over. You're going to stand up, have a little stroll around, and we're just going to finish with our standing assessment again. So we're going to shake everything off. Whew. Definitely feeling a bit out of breath. And tuning in with how our body feels having done that routine, which, despite it being advertised as being for people with an anterior pelvic tilt, it can suit all sorts of bodies. It really just does depend. Certain exercises suit all sorts of postures, so it doesn't really matter what you are. How do you feel in comparison to the beginning? Has your pain lessened? Has your tension lessened? Are you feeling more upright? Are you feeling more balanced? I'm definitely feeling more open through my hips here. I can feel my glutes and my hamstrings are engaging a bit more. And I feel like my shoulders are further behind me as well, without me having to kind of pull them there. They're just naturally sitting a bit differently, which is very, very nice. And that is the end of class. I'm just going to mention a couple of things, and then we've got our coaching tier session for coaching tier members afterwards. But just to remind you that next week's class is another one of these routines. It's definitely a bit longer, so that one will probably run over a bit. But we've got our members Q&A next week after class. So if you've got any questions or anything that you want to ask me, that would be your time to ask questions. Or if you can't attend live, you can always put questions in the community forum and I will tackle them in the class. And then you've also got next week my breathwork basics session on Thursday, the 24th of July. You'll get the information about it in your members' emails with the discount code and stuff. So make sure to sign up for it if you want to take part. And Ben's running the Happy Hips Challenge throughout August as well. So please do make sure to sign up for that. And the details for it will be in the members' emails as well this evening. So just always keep your eyes peeled for stuff. You don't have to do it, but they are just things for you to do if you would like. And I think that is it. I'm amazed at the rain, which has suddenly hit, but the gardeners never needed it more, so this is a good thing. Right, I will sign off now. I'll see you all again next Monday. I really hope you enjoyed that one. I'm still sweating a bit and out of breath from Airbench. But yeah, I'll see you all again next week, and lots of love. Bye.